In this video, we start an all-wheel drive conversion on the Chevy Cruze 1.8 turbo project. Can we convert the Cruze to all-wheel drive using Chevy Trax parts? Let's keep it Chevy, shall we? And find out. Let's go. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, I'm Matt. Let's go ahead and kick this project off and go and pick up some parts to start this all-wheel drive conversion. Let's go. I've got a U-Haul trailer to, essentially I'm going to the junkyard, found an all-wheel drive Trax. They have the subframe, the rear CV axles, the differential, drive shaft. I think the transfer case on this one might be damaged. I would need the driver's side, or excuse me, passenger side CV axle. However, this is a front end collision car. Not a big deal. I can always source that online on eBay. Even though initially I was looking online for all this stuff on eBay, I still needed that subframe. So I called some local guys up and they're like, we'll give you everything for 500 bucks. 500 bucks! With all that stuff in my cart in eBay, it was closer to 2 grand. So I'm like, 500 bucks, I'll be there. There's a handful of other things I will still need, and we're going to make this work with the current manual transmission. They do have a Vauxhall or Opel Mocha, which is practically the same exact damn thing. I'm sure GM did their usual thing and just bought up some vehicle that was already made, gave it a different badge, you know, called it something else. They do have a manual version, and there are a few parts that I need. One of the parts I won't be able to get, I'll just have to design. That's basically the reinforcement mount to the differential to the engine block, but it's just a small little piece I could probably design up, create. Then there's an adapter plate that goes from the transmission to the transfer case itself, but those are pretty common here in the States. So let's hit the road, go to this junkyard. They're gonna pull everything, 500 bucks, getting the suspension, everything. I know it's not the same platform and chassis, however, we're gonna make it work. All right, I got about an hour drive. I'll see you at the junkyard. Hell yeah! Well, here's the donor vehicle right here. The guys are going to get a forklift, lift this thing up. Looks like the transfer case is gone, but the drive shaft is there. All the rear suspension components that I need. Here's the CV axle I could have used, but you know, again, this is a front end damaged car. So while I'm looking at this thing, man, it's got the, well, I guess the transmission tunnel's just taller to account for an exhaust as well. But if I have to, I'll do a bumper exit kind of deal. Oh, I'm gonna have them grab the gas tank as well. Might as well see if we can't make it work with the Chevy Cruze. Just a couple straps that holds the thing in. We shall see. Now it's just a waiting game. It's Monday for them and it's slow. It's cleanup day. Well, there we go. The rear suspension is completely out. I do know that we have this beam on the Cruze. There's our mounting point in our beam. So we'll have to weld a little plate. I've got everything power washed, got a lot of that dirt off. She's looking a little better. However, before I fully install this stuff, when we get to that point, I'll give it a light coat of paint. However, I did want to talk about some of the similarities because we have this beam here, and then if we look under the Cruze, I got that same style of beam right there, and that's for the suspension arms, which this type of suspension just doesn't have it. It's more of a ladder bar kind of setup, almost like a solid axle. And the Cruze is the same thing. You can see the axle, except this one is just straight. See it right there. Same style of perch for the springs. the shocks, I imagine this probably just pushes it out the way a little more, giving a little bit more space for this axle. I have no idea how these springs got twisted up, but you can see we have room there. But one of the other things that I did notice about the shock, I mean, the shock mount looks practically identical here in the Cruze, so really the only difference I'm seeing on the Cruze is we have this style of setup here where it's a through bolt. The perch is hung by 4 bolts. So who knows, I might just be able to see if it'll fit into the stock perch and see where everything fits. So I'm going to disassemble this a little further so that way we can make some of these parts a little more manageable and I can shove them in the garage. And then we'll take it piece by piece. So I'm going to disassemble this. I wrestled out the gas tank, and I have them right here side by side, so we can compare the obvious difference. This is the one that came out of the Cruze. Whew, nice and dirty once again. This does have my DW300C pump in it, so what I'm thinking about doing is just taking this pump out. They look like the same size. Really, the only difference is there's a fuel sending unit on that side as well as this side. So it'll start draining gas from this side, siphoning it over there. The fuel sending unit here will read half the tank on and then another half for over here. With my Cruze setup, we just have the one fuel sending unit. This side can drain, but as soon as this side starts draining, we'll know that the gas tank is getting empty. But the bigger question is, will these pumps exchange? And can I fit that damn gas tank inside the Cruze so we can make it work, the all-wheel drive setup? Let's find out, shall we? Let's go. Woo! Ran out of daylight, but there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Got the DW300 pump in there, still retaining the basket from the Trax, so that way it will siphon from that other side over there. Now I just need to jam this thing back on in. We got the fuel system all wrapped up last night. Now let's start retrofitting this rear differential and suspension into the car. I'm gonna start by taking down this suspension beam here, and we'll see if this other piece will go into place. I've taken some measurements and it looks like it's about the same, but there's only one way. Find out. Let's get after it. And just like that, it is out. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. Is that not almost perfection right there? All right, let's toss it in. Oh man, it's so freaking close, it's not even funny. All right, we're off by maybe 3/4 of an inch. So I could probably cut this thing, make it the width that we need to. I doubt it will make that big of a difference when it comes to the differential being slightly off-centered, just a touch. It's not too bad of a fitment here. I'll just have to pound the spare tire well just up a little bit. All right, let's get this thing down and then we can modify this. I might just toss a jack up underneath it for now. See where the rear diff is going to sit up under here, but we should have a ton of space. Well, only one way to find out. My camera died on me while I was cutting this. However, I think you get the point. We removed 1/2 inch. That is the difference. Took some measurements. Now I just need to prep this piece up, remove the paint, and we'll TIG weld this thing up, and we'll give it another shot. thing all welded out. I just need to grind this portion here flush so that way this will mount up flush underneath the chassis. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll see how it fits. Ha! Look at that! I really didn't have to do anything to the spare tire. Well, we're all mounted flush. She's in there solid. Now let's toss the diff in there and then we'll make a mounting point for it. Well, that's about as far as I can jam this thing up in there. However, I got a sneaking suspicion that this will line right up with this unibody kind of center beam, whatever you want to call it. This is the structural piece right here. And if this mounting point lines up, we can just weld on some reinforcement with a bolt on the underside and mount it that way. But for shits and giggles, I have a sneaking suspicion. So what I'm going to do is just cut this beam here, just to clear this for now. I took some measurements, and it does appear that the hub is the same size on the Cruze versus that all-wheel drive Sonic, and there's already a hole there. You know, if anything, we could potentially make this suspension work. Cut this section out. Take that hoop-de-hoop section, cut it, weld it. Then I wouldn't have to worry about these mounting tabs from this other suspension, and then we can figure out this part of the suspension. Who knows, maybe it's not even needed. But for now, I'm gonna cut it there just so we can get this diff in there and we can make some progress. Well, change of plans. I'm just going to remove this suspension, toss the Sonic suspension under there, and then we'll go from there. I think that sounds better, right? Yeah, I think so too. All right, let's go. Well, there we have it. I got the rear suspension out of the car. I'm going to take some measurements from this perch point back to the center of this hub, see what the difference is, if any, and then we'll just slide this thing up under there. See how it all fits. Well, that's not going to work because we're already hitting the unibody here, or the chassis. So what I'm thinking is, I did take some measurements and the hubs seem to be the same, so I'm going to see if I can interchange one of those sides. If that is the case and this axle clears, then we could probably just take this section right here, just cut it off and weld it to the Cruze rear suspension. All right, let's give that a try. It's another day, making some progress here. I got this side pulled off over here. Man, these axles were really stuck. This one's still jammed in there. I see all this PB blaster on the ground. But the great news is these hubs, the Trax all-wheel drive hubs, fit right up to the stock Chevy Cruze suspension here. However, we are a little tight right here. Like, I can engage this. That's about as far as I can jam it in there. You'll notice the main difference. You see how much more meat we have right here. Well, it just looks like this is machined and opened up a little more, because you can see where the bolt would seat and it cuts right into it. So I'm thinking what I can do is just open the bore up on the stock suspension. I'm still thinking about the best way to go about doing that, whether that's just taking a carbide bit, taking my time, opening it up. I think there is probably about 1/4 of an inch circumference, maybe more, I don't know. I took some measurements, but I forgot what it is off the top of my head. So that's something else that we need to tackle. This beam right here, we need to figure that out. Once we get that tackled and we can toss the CV axles in, get the suspension up in there, we'll be able to figure out whether or not the springs are going to be in the way, as well as the shocks. This is going to be a process. I was hoping we'd be able to bolt this Sonic suspension up. However, we'll improvise it and make it work. This is gonna work. It will. As it stands now, I'm working on designing a bracket to mount the front of the differential right there. Have the drive shaft running along, going into the tunnel. Plenty of space there. I think that angle is just fine, plenty of room. Who knows, I still need to jam the gas tank up in here. So that's something else we need to do and test fit. It does look like there's going to be plenty of space, just eyeballing it, for that gas tank. There it is over there. Just even eyeballing, you can tell it'll fit. So I guess at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I just need to go ahead and start cutting this down, cut the stock one down. At least that'll help me mock things up, see what the difference is, if any, with the CV axles, if they're going to have to be shortened or lengthened. I think with the drive shaft, it probably will need to be lengthened. However, let's do that first. Let's just focus on the rear, get all that done, and then we'll move to the front of the car. Let's do this. I've got some lines scribed, a little center marking. We got this thing nice and flat on the ground. Did that to both sides. I just used some zip ties in order to get a perfect circle, nice and aligned. So we'll cut that out. Then we'll do the same for the other beam of the suspension, whatever you want to call that damn thing. We'll take a measurement of what and I've done it already off camera, but we should be able to cut this section out where it's round on both of these and then just weld this beam up. There we go, she's all tacked up. See, I did put a little bit of a bevel there. Same thing on this side over here. I'm gonna toss this in the car, install the differential, and make sure we're clearing. If it clears, we'll fully weld it out and we'll move forward. Oh, and while we're under there, we'll halfway insert a CV axle. See if it clears with the springs and all that stuff. All right, let's check it out. Well, at its lowest setting, it is angled down quite a bit. That drop in the suspension there wasn't enough, so we'll have to figure out some sort of U-bend or something right there. But we're off to a good start though. Well, I'm going to end the video there. We're off to a pretty good start. Obviously, there's a lot of things I still need to figure out. And you're more than welcome to join in. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm gonna continue thinking about some of this stuff. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Until next time, peace out. Peace out.